Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Firebombs, vandalism, deadly threats. Pro-abortion activists have attacked more than 60 pro-life organizations since the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. That decision was leaked to the public.
And the response to these crimes from the FBI and the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security has basically been silence. Likewise, the president has yet to comment. Heather Sells reports on this rising wave of vicious assaults.
Since May and the published leak of a draft opinion in the Dobbs abortion case, hostile actors have targeted at least 63 pro-life groups in 26 states and Washington, D.C. The attacks have included vandalism, threatening messages, and firebombings.
What's been so striking to us is the non-response.
The Religious Freedom Institute enlisted the help of a former FBI counterterrorism expert to assess these crimes. That analysis found the number of violent events growing since May and resulting in little to no condemnation from federal leaders.
In terms of headquarters level, the leadership from the FBI, from the Department of Justice, and from the Department of Homeland Security, for the most part, has been silence.
We could surmise that if 50 Planned Parenthoods had been vandalized, firebombed, there would probably be an uproar.
Ann O'Connor, lead counsel for a national organization of crisis pregnancy centers, says that while local law enforcement, the FBI, and Homeland Security are investigating many of their cases, she's seen no progress.
I don't believe there's been one arrest. It's been going on now 3 months.
CBN News asked the FBI for an update on suspects or arrests and received none. Only a general response that it is investigating the crimes. The Religious Freedom Institute report also reveals a wave of assaults on Catholic sites. More than 30 churches have been attacked since the Dobbs leak, with half showing abortion as the motive. While President Biden has yet to publicly condemn these attacks, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi angrily dismissed a reporter's question about them.
This talk of politicizing all of this, I think, is something uniquely American and not right.
And Vice President Kamala Harris even suggests that faith should not inform a person's view on abortion.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held religious beliefs to agree that a woman should have the ability to make decisions about her own body.
In this current climate, the Religious Freedom Institute report forecasts more attacks, and it is urging pro-life organizations and churches to reevaluate security and strengthen relationships with law enforcement.
If people who want to harm pro-lifers, who want to burn down their pregnancy centers, who want to do physical harm and violence to the staff and the volunteers, if they think they can do this and get away with it, more and more of them will.
Gordon, this report is part of a multi-year investigative effort by the Religious Freedom Institute.
Well, Heather, what does the future look like for crisis pregnancy centers?
A lot different right now, Gordon. They are really thinking about security in ways they haven't. A lot of them are realizing they have to make their case and explain how they operate to local and state officials that they might have taken for granted in the past. They really need their support now. And we also know that in Massachusetts just this week, they are calling on the Attorney General and saying, how are you going to protect us? How are you going to help us here? So very real concerns about security for them right now.
Well, if the attacks continue to be ignored, what does that mean for our country?
Yeah, on a couple of levels, it's quite concerning. One is that the attacks will increase, and they'll increase in their level of violence if no one is calling them out or really taking them seriously. There's also concern, Gordon, just about freedom of religion and pluralism in our country. Are people going to feel chilled in their free exercise of religion and in having different viewpoints by these attacks not being taken seriously? And then the overarching concern here, Gordon, is America traditionally has been a gold standard across the world in terms of freedom of religion, and we have taken other countries to task for their lapses in this area. So now we are no longer keeping our own house in order. What does that mean for us here in this country and for our ability to help the rest of the world protect religious liberties?
Well, Heather, thanks for that report. And I'll just add, what does it say for the rule of law? If you say certain crimes can happen, vandalism can happen, firebombing can happen, threats of violence, threats of death can happen, and there's no response from law enforcement, they don't do anything in the wake of that. Well, what does that mean for the rule of law? And aren't you encouraging the violence? Aren't you encouraging the vandalism? This is absolutely something that our leadership should say, this is not right. You can't have this kind of lawlessness and maintain a society. The prime thing government needs to do is to make sure that people are secure in their property and protected in their person. And if you aren't doing that, well, then you're going to have chaos. Well, in other news, a top Republican is getting grief from his own party after calling for a nationwide restriction on abortion. Efren Graham has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom.
Gordon, South Carolina's Lindsey Graham is proposing a nationwide ban on abortions after 15 weeks. Tuesday, he introduced the bill that protects unborn children capable of feeling pain.
The science tells us that the 15-week period, the nerve endings of the baby are pretty well developed and the child feels pain. So here's our point, that if you have to provide anesthesia to keep the baby from feeling pain to help save its life, should we as a nation be aborting babies that can feel excruciating pain from an abortion?
This plan comes in the wake of efforts by Democrats to ensure nationwide abortion access. However, some Republicans are backing away from a federal measure to protect life, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said most want to see it dealt with on a state level. New Jersey Republican Congressman Chris Smith has introduced a companion bill in the House. Startling testimony Tuesday in a congressional hearing on the vulnerability of Twitter's user data. A whistleblower accusing the social media giant of misleading the public over security concerns.
They don't know what data they have, where it lives, or where it came from, and so, unsurprisingly, they can't protect it. And this leads to the second problem, which is the employees then have to have too much access to too much data and to too many systems.
Peter Zatko is the former security chief at Twitter. He testified the company has weak cyber defenses and cannot control millions of fake accounts. Eyes are on the stock market after a massive drop Tuesday. This after the latest report shows inflation is still rising and consumers are paying high prices for food, rent, and other goods and services. Charlene Aaron is on this story.
The latest report showed inflation is still rising. That rattled the stock market Tuesday, the Dow plunging some 1,200 points, and raises concerns of a possible recession.
Let's just hope that's a one-day phenomenon and not the start of a trend. But that, as you said, that was the worst day for the stock market this year. And those are big, big declines.
The news also bad for consumers, squeezed with higher prices on just about everything.
You're supposed to try to survive when the cheapest apartment in Phoenix is $1,000 a month.
Prices for groceries also way up, more than 13% from last year. This single mom struggling to put food on the table.
What else can you do? Starve? Like, you have to buy it. It kind of is what it is. Do we like it? No, but I deal with the prices.
On CBN's Faith Nation, economist Stephen Moore of FreedomWorks said families are lagging behind big time.
We estimate that the average family has lost somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 of purchasing power because of this stampede of inflation that doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
Still, President Biden claims the nation's other economic indicators are all positive. He even invited Democrats to the White House to celebrate the recent spending bill that they named the Inflation Reduction Act.
The economy's still strong, unemployment's low, jobs are up, manufacturing's good, so I think we're going to be fine.
They may be taking a victory lap at the White House, but I can tell you one thing, the American people are not. because they are feeling the direct impact of this every single day.
Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is expected to raise rates by another 0.75% or more next week, making everything from car loans to credit card debt even more expensive. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
American families feeling it at every end. Gordon?
And let me underline, please don't start running up credit card balances just to try to make ends meet. As interest rates go up, they've topped 6%. I fully expect the Federal Reserve to raise another 7.75%, so 0.75 of a point. And they're not going to stop there. They're going to keep raising interest rates until inflation stops. Unfortunately, raising those rates isn't going to stop inflation, because what's happening is that we have so many supply chain issues and lack of access to resource issues that are happening, that rising interest rates isn't going to change that. It isn't going to reduce demand that much. It'll reduce demand for housing and for luxury items and cars and boats and that kind of thing, but it's not going to change the price of food, and that is going to really impact American families. I know I'm making dire predictions, but I think it's needed. Please protect your finances. Please have it in accordance with what God says to do. Limit excess spending or any kind of luxury spending, and really focus in on, do you have your rainy day fund? Are you ready for something catastrophic to happen? Because that could. Next week, if railroad workers go on strike, get ready for inflation to go through the roof, because that means those supply chain issues get magnified by a factor of 10. The trucking industry won't be able to cover it, and we are going to see an absolute out-of-control inflation, and then following that, a recession. This is really serious, so take it seriously. Get your financial house in order to ride out this coming storm.